We really need to put an end to the myth that we are living in a post-racial society. The idea that America was entering an age of being a post-racial country was pushed forward in the immediate aftermath of the election of Barack Obama. The idea was that by the fact that America elected its first Black president, we as a country have moved past all of the racial roots that this country is built on. That clearly was put to rest very quickly when we look at the rise of the Tea Party, which was the prototype for today's MAGA. The simplest way to understand why this myth is completely busted is just to look at the staying power of MAGA and Donald Trump in particular. Donald Trump has been in the political sphere for the last 14 years within Republican politics, and he rose to power and sustained his support by using the same tactics that animated uneducated working-class whites in the Jim Crow era. The playbook that Donald Trump uses now is the same exact playbook that his voter base's ancestors used to turn public lynchings into spectator sports. Let's make no mistake about it. The same group of people who, for 50 or more years, would print postcards after lynchings and take home body parts as souvenirs, the offspring of those people currently make up the majority of the MAGA base. There's a straight line between those two groups. And today, while lynchings as a spectator sport isn't a thing, you can still see evidence of the same type of behavior online. And there's a long list of people who have benefited from the online lynchings of Black people all across the country. Now, the most recent example is Chud the Builder. And this is a guy who is so mediocre that the only thing that he could do to get attention was to try to harass Black people and stream that online in the hopes of getting a reaction. And he recently got a reaction that ended up with him going to jail. But that's not the part that is interesting to observe. What's interesting to observe is that he's now got a couple of fundraisers, particularly one on the GiveSendGo platform. And that platform tends to have an affinity for supporting all sorts of white nationalists and racist charity cases. And he's raised over $100,000 on that platform. And the whole reason that Chud the Builder has that support is because he's using the same tactics through a different medium that the lynch mobs used back in the day. But Chud's not the only one that's getting rich by being a racist and assaulting and battering Black people. You have Shiloh Hendricks, who in 2025 made herself a nice little payday by hurling racial slurs at a Black kid on a playground. And as typical of white women, she played the victim, and all of the white nationalists and anti-Semites on the GiveSendGo platform helped funnel over $1 million to her to facilitate her moving from a dangerous scenario that she created herself. Not to be outdone, you have Kyle Rittenhouse, the poster child for the MAGA base. The guy who broke several state and federal laws, carried an unlicensed firearm across state lines, and executed people to quote-unquote protect property in Kenosha during the BLM riots. And he got off. He ultimately got off by cosplaying contrition on the stand. But in the process of all of that, the same crowds that would have cheered public lynchings 100 years ago helped him raise $2 million for his expenses and quote-unquote legal fees. In addition to Rittenhouse, you have Daniel Penny, who was acquitted of choking to death the homeless person, Jordan Neely, on a subway train. Penny went to trial and was acquitted, but throughout that whole process, he was able to crowdfund almost $3 million for his various expenses. These are just 4 examples that illustrate that we are not in a post-racial America. In fact, America is still infested with white supremacists and racists everywhere. In fact, the data seems to show that if you can terrorize Black people and stream it, there's a baked-in audience that will mobilize and activate to financially support your efforts in doing that. When you look at the podcast bros and the entire right-wing ecosystem, this is a well-funded ecosystem of white supremacists and racists who are bankrolled by domestic and foreign sources to push forward this white nationalist agenda and messaging. These four examples demonstrate that not only are we not in a post-racial society, it demonstrates that when we think about the terrorizing of Black and brown communities around the US, it's a spectator sport that pays well to the quote-unquote celebrities that are willing to exact the ultimate price to their victims.